Do you think they can actually unlock the full breadth of Andy Reid's playbook?
There's always that one play in the comeback that the crowd kind of gets excited and all of a sudden you feel the juice back.
Or would you rather be a seller at the trade deadline?
Never waste a Super Bowl year window with Mahomes.
Yeah, back shoulder throws, play action passes.
He obviously has impressed the coaching staff enough.
Out of position or missed a tackle or didn't square up the way he should have.
His range, his athleticism, I definitely think it'll be missed.
All right, Chiefs Kingdom, welcome in to the Out of Structure podcast once again. The grand reopening of your favorite Chiefs podcast, hopefully. We went on a little bit of a sabbatical, but we are back. I am Ron Kopp Jr., the contributing editor at ArrowheadPride.com. And with me, as always, on the Out of Structure podcast is Matt Stagner, senior writer at the site as well. Stags, we're back. What's up, man?
Man, it's great to see you. Great to be talking Chiefs again, even if it's a wash of a season. We still have plenty to talk about, but man, I couldn't be doing better, and glad to see you're doing well too.
Do we deserve any blame for kind of ghosting the people, and then this happens? I mean, it is weird timing. I mean, I don't know.
Correlation is not causation, but the fact that we haven't been on the air and the Chiefs had a terrible season, you draw your own conclusions.
Terrible season is an understatement too, for sure. And we'll get into all that, but no, we should explain ourselves a little bit, and explain myself for sure. Being the contributing editor, that's a new title. If you have not, seen that before. I was the lead analyst last time you heard me on these airwaves. But things have changed. I went on like a quarter life crisis a little bit, and realized what I wanted to do, which included talking to you fine folks about the Chiefs, writing about the Chiefs. And so this is what I'm doing. We're back, and I don't see it getting interrupted anytime in the future. And with that, Stags, I also became a father. I brought a daughter into this world. So crazy year, crazy time off. Took the break from the pod and quit my job and had a baby. So I don't know. Can you top that for having a crazier 2025?
No, that's a mic drop moment there from the Kopp family. I'm really happy for you all and being
thank you.
Seeing you kind of just jump into something that you love and I really have fun with on the Chiefs side. I think it's great, and I think everybody out there is going to appreciate having your voice back and having you really focused on the Chiefs whenever you're not focused on family. For me, a lot of stuff's happened this year. My oldest is about to go off to college. He's in the final stages of picking a school, and I'm pretty pumped for him. I got promoted a couple times at work. Everything's been good.
No big deal.
But the craziest thing that happened to me is something that is a ridiculous story. So feel free to cut this if you don't want to use it. But Halloween time in Des Moines, Iowa, there was a gentleman, and I use that term loosely to quote my high school physics teacher, that posted a picture of himself in full Adolf Hitler costume. And I don't mean like a little bit, like the whole thing, the mustache, the salute, the uniform, and put it out on social media that he was going to go upset some snowflakes on Halloween. All right, for the record, this is not me. I don't know this person. I have no connection to this person. All right. So fast forward to Halloween night. He's out. He sees some people at a bar. Pictures get taken, and now social media starts to react to this guy going after him. And he was a small business owner. I'm not sure that he still is, but the social media backlash started, right? Well, people went after him, of course. People identified the others at the bar who may or may not have known him at all and went after them, and then went after their employers, and then went after all of this stuff, right? Well, as a side note, I've been getting more involved in the community here in the Des Moines area. I'm on some nonprofit boards, and it turns out that somebody who was in the photograph, not with this guy, but just happened to be at the same bar, works for a nonprofit organization, a great place here in Des Moines that serves people with disabilities. And so people started coming after this organization saying, you guys are Nazis and Nazi supporters because you employ a Nazi because you employ someone who is in a picture with a guy at a bar dressed as Hitler. Okay. So already a tenuous connection at best, and not really fair to this woman who
today's world.
Right. This woman who hadn't had a chance to tell her side of the story, probably even still, but already she was a coach. She lost her job there. Just a lot of things have come from. Well, we had an event for this nonprofit, and we had to get extra security because we were worried about who might show up. And then, but nobody showed up. It turned out fine. But I found out after the fact that not only did the internet backlash hit the guy that was in the picture, or the people he ran across at the bar, or the employers of all of those people involved, but somebody had the audacity to pull the pictures of all the board members of the organization, the nonprofit organization who was at the bar, who ran into a guy who was dressed as Hitler, and call them out by name and photo online. So if you see any references to me being a Nazi supporter, it is false, 100%. I denounce all forms of hate and racism and things like that. But I happen to be a volunteer on the board of a nonprofit where a woman who was at a bar works, who got her picture taken with a guy who dressed up as Hitler. So
let's get this on the record. You disavow Nazis.
I disavow all of this. I'm not in.
Okay. See, we're good.
The organization is great, and I think a lot of good people get hurt that way. But
that's great.
We were able to get the pictures taken down, and all is well that ends well. But there for a minute, I was a little concerned with what my online presence might reveal to the folks out there.
Well, I mean, it's kind of poetic, I guess, in our re-grand opening episode that we steal a segment from our friends at Beach Season, who I think ask all of their guests if they disavow Nazis when they first come on the show. So there we go. We're just disavowing Nazis over here too. So shout out Stags. Just making it clear. He's just making sure no one gets it twisted if they see some propaganda online. But
so be careful who you take pictures with at a bar, because things can come around. And also be kind. That is
today's world.
Be kind to people even online. You don't know what's going on in somebody's world, so don't just assume and try to ruin somebody's life when you see something online you don't like. So anyway, that's my soapbox for the morning.
Yeah, well, and I think this opening is a perfect encapsulation of just where we're at as a Chiefs kingdom here, where we're talking about this instead of playoff preview or anything relevant to this Week 18 game. We are recording this before
race. Yeah.
Oh, nope. I thought at one point I was on the MVP bandwagon. No, let's get into this disaster, this season from hell, this lost season that was the 2025 campaign. I guess this is one way to reintroduce ourselves to, talking about the Arrowheadlines from this season. I have taken over that responsibility for the site, making the Arrowheadlines for arrowheadpride.com each week. Shout out Tom Childs, old friend, good friend, legendary member of Chiefs Kingdom. I tweeted that out, and I truly mean it. Him and Brad, they were very essential in growing Chiefs Kingdom abroad, in a completely different country, which is crazy. So shout out Tom, and I am Mr. Arrowheadlines now after he did it for, I don't even know how long, 6-7 years or how long, but let's go through some Arrowheadlines of this season, Stags. You want to kind of hit the highlights for us, see what we want to dive into?
I'm not sure highlights is the right word here, but
terrible word.
The story of the season at the end of the day is Mahomes tearing his ACL. I mean, that all hope was slim and hard to come by, but it was alive until Mahomes went down. At that moment, the season was over. Nothing else was going to matter that happened after that. There was no, there was no hope at that point. It was just that was just the end. And I'm wondering how we're going to view this in the future. When you look back at the 2025 season, I think injuries are going to be a big part of the story, and specifically the Mahomes injury. Yes, people will point out that they were already on the verge of being eliminated before Mahomes got hurt. But if you look up and down the offensive line, the receiver group, there was a ridiculous list of injuries in the second half of this season that completely derailed any thoughts of saving it. So that's the big story for me.
They were driving. Mahomes was driving. I don't know. There was I think it was a few throws he made before he tore his ACL. No, the only silver lining we have from this is the fact that for some reason they felt like they needed to operate right away on Mahomes's knee, and so he got a second opinion after getting opinion from the Chiefs doctor, got the surgery, and started rehab all within 48 hours of suffering the injury. That's crazy, unheard of, but I think it's just
part of the
course.
Ron, have you ever torn an ACL or another major ligament?
No, I have not, and I think I know someone on this podcast who has.
So
I forgot.
So I did in high school basketball. Shout out Plattsburgh High School with my 30-year reunion coming up here. But a torn ACL at that time, was considered a year-long injury. But you had to wait. I had to wait 2 weeks at least before the swelling was down far enough that they could operate. And then, you don't, it's just unheard of. It's just really unusual.
Yeah.
I think, and really it's going to go a little bit into the legend of Mahomes when he comes back from this and is dominant again. And it starts before opening day 2026 is what I'm calling right now. This is going to be a little bit of the Eric Berry coming back from cancer, some of those big, Steve DeBerg playing with the broken pinky and the giant cast and just gutting it out. I feel like there's going to be part of the legend of Mahomes is going to grow because of this and the way he attacks rehab. I have no question that it's going to be one of a kind or really exceptional.
No, I do agree that it is going to be part of his legend. I tweeted it at the time, but I truly I almost think I got to a point where I didn't think it was possible for him to suffer like a truly like a season ending or like a long-term injury. Like it got to a point where it seemed like we had so many scares. We had so many. Stop it. No, I did not. It honestly was more that like he got hurt, right, and is going off the field limping and stuff, and I really didn't even think it was going to be that bad of an injury until it was said torn ACL, and then it really hit me like, wow, Mahomes actually, after all these years of the Denver game in 2019 of his kneecap being sideways and playing 3 weeks later or whatever it was, and the ankle and multiple playoff runs, and it always felt like he had something look really bad and then it wasn't actually bad. And so it is funny that it's not funny, but just crazy that it's the same year, in terms of like how many years they played, that Tom Brady tore his ACL, same starting season. It's just kind of is going to be part of his legacy coming back from it. And, I think maybe, an underrated thing we can talk about as we get to it is just that, maybe it'll make him, force him to get better at some of the stuff that he does, maybe, lack at as a great quarterback, at times in terms of, playing from the pocket, trusting his line and not, just trusting his legs and all that. So we'll get into that as we go on.
Well, the other big storyline is still to be determined, I would say, because, Travis Kelce, last year of his contract, he's 36. I don't know about you, but I definitely was not in playing shape at 36. It's impressive that he's doing what he's doing at this point. I'm curious to get your take on, is this actually Travis Kelce's final season? Do we already see the last game or the last connection between him and Mahomes? What do you think?
I'm just not going to waver on my initial logic for the fact that I've thought this was going to be his last season really since like before the season started. I just feel like he wanted to give it one last go. I feel like you heard him last year talk about he wasn't in the best shape, or maybe he just didn't give it as much, as he should have, last season. And, obviously it ended not like how he wanted it either. And I think he would have retired potentially if they would have won the Super Bowl last season. All that to say, I'm just not going to waver because I do think he is playing to a level where it's like, and he's a free agent. So, if the Chiefs are just going to be, if the Chiefs want to say like, we don't want to re-sign you, and he really has that itch, like
Man.
that would, I don't really think that would happen, but he's playing well enough. I mean, you see some of these other tight ends, like he's not, I mean, he's not like a slowpoke compared to these guys. I mean, he's playing well. So all that to say, I think it's not about that he can't continue playing. I just think he will retire.
Man, you're giving me that Jamal Charles on the Broncos or Shaquille O'Neal on the Celtics kind of vibe here. Like you can't do that.
I don't think he will.
I don't think he's going to play anywhere else. I would wager that he doesn't want to go out the way he went out, and Mahomes is going to attack his rehab and look Kelce in the eye and say, "I'm going to be ready for opening day. You better be too." And him signing a 1-year deal to ride off in the sunset in a better fashion, more on his own terms than how he ended this year. That's my guess, but
that's fair. But I will say he's been playing like someone who's leaving it all out there on the field. I highlighted on the snap count data a couple weeks ago, but he's been playing like close to 100% of the snaps in like almost every game since the bye week. To me, that is indicative of someone that is, again, leaving it all out there, but it also could just be the fact that he's a legend and trying to do everything he can to get this team to the playoffs, and wasn't able to, but still was trying his butt off to do it.
I did appreciate how he was showing a lot of great leadership even in this last game, really pushing the offense to make something happen. And man, it was this close to being the absolute storybook inning against the Broncos. I mean, it was, if all of the conspiracy theories about the NFL being scripted would have gone through the roof, had that game win, that last drive,
oh my,
turned into a touchdown and a Travis Kelce 2-point conversion to walk off with a win, with a third string quarterback and a fourth string offensive line or tackles. That was the movie script right there. I couldn't believe that the script writers let that one get away from him.
Man, that throw to Hollywood was just like a foot, even half a foot lower. I feel like maybe Hollywood would have snagged that. It was a tough play, but man, I honestly shout out Oladokin. We didn't talk about that last game at all. There's not really any real reason to. We'll talk about a lot of this stuff as the pod goes, but I will say shout out Chris Oladokin. I've honestly been impressed with just kind of how he's been able to manage the games. I don't think he's playing with much around him or much, to work with. I'd be curious to see him with, if he actually had to come in as like a QB2 with when we're fully healthy. I'd be curious if they give him the chance to actually be QB2 next year,
Yeah, we'll get to that. I think I want to know if you think, or if we think that some of these guys are part of the solution going forward or part of the problem that need to be replaced. So we'll have a whole segment on that. For him, just, we'll get him out of the way now. And I'll say that it's been a valiant effort, but he should be QB3 coming into the season next year.
Okay.
Again. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves with him. I think, I appreciate the way he's approached the game and what he's done here. But
you don't think the fact that he sounds like Patrick Mahomes, that has the same cadence of speaking, and I think that is funny. I noticed it in his press conference last week, and I tweeted something about it. It didn't make sense, so I deleted it. And now over the weekend, he goes viral. Everyone's saying he sounds like Mahomes. I was like, dang it, I was early on that. Missed out on the clout.
He had a couple Mahomes movement, a couple Mahomes plays, where he was, escaping pressure and throwing on the run and back across his body. I'm like, all right, maybe there's something to, he's at least been the scout team Mahomes for, for a while, right?
Yeah, no, I looked it up. He's been with the team since like 2022. So I mean, that's a long time. He's been around. And so yeah, anyway. I do think one thing with the Oladokin thing, to get into one of our other headlines, is you're kind of seeing, since Mahomes went out, there's just, this offense is inept. And I do think it speaks to the fact that this offense just needs a refresh. I think that's a big headline from this season. And honestly, we're starting to get more and more info on the fact that Matt Nagy's contract is going to expire at the end of the season. And I highlighted it for Arrowheadlines actually today, when we're recording this on Tuesday, December 30th, that The Athletic wrote a piece with, someone that interviewed him, Dan Pompey, I believe is the author, excuse me. And, went to his house and talked about, his next head coaching gig and what he'd do different about, what he did in Chicago. It seems to me like everything's pointing towards Nagy. If I would, I think in his mind, getting a head coaching gig, that Tennessee job makes a lot of sense with Borgonzi being the GM there, which that was a point in the article too, that they had a good relationship. But either way, this feels like the Bieniemy thing where, Bieniemy didn't get fired, but he did just move on eventually. And I do think I would like to see offensive coaching staff refresh at some point, get some new ideas in here. Whether or not that happens, I'm not sure, but I do think it just needs to at least be attempted.
Yeah, I agree there. I'd be curious to see if it's a Bieniemy like in the way that it took him multiple years to find a new home, and that would slow down the pace of any refresh if he just kind of keeps hanging around until he gets a better job. But we'll see about that. If you're, I guess we buried the lead a little bit. And when we say the biggest headlines were the ones we just talked about, I'm curious on the timing of this, but the Chiefs announced the move to the Kansas side, which as a Mizzou alum, that stings a little bit, but I'm not losing any sleep over it. But the Chiefs moving out of Arrowhead Stadium, 2031, crossing over to the dark side, the Kansas side of things, and you're going to build a ridiculous dome and community around it, and new training facility. And this hasn't been talked about a lot, but they mentioned that that not only is the headquarters going to be there, the training facility going to be there, but potentially training camp facility will be there as well. So St. Joe might lose at the same time that Independence Raytown loses, right?
Yeah. So training camp, pre-game, post-game parties at my place, because that would be literally 10 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. Yeah, no, it is kind of funny. We have this Kansas, Missouri perspective here. You being, born and raised Missourian. I'm a born and raised Kansan. And this is a pretty cool, when you just look at it from that perspective, it is pretty cool for the Kansas side, being able to get, they were moving from Arrowhead no matter what. I think that's the main point here is in my opinion, it seemed like they didn't want to be at Arrowhead. I mean, if they would have put together a much better plan, to kind of show the people who were voting on them to stay in Jackson County. All that to say, it sucks. It sucks because Arrowhead is legendary. We actually have what's the worst take you've seen? I'm gonna go ahead and pull it right now into the Twitterverse. The worst take I saw on Twitter. Shout out Curtis Siebold, great Kansas City Metro coverer, covers, he's with 810, does a great job with Sir and Petro show. But he said Arrowhead Stadium is not iconic, and that blew my mind, and he got properly ratioed for it on Twitter. I think a lot of Chiefs Kingdom came to the defense of a very iconic stadium. I mean, that's half the reason I'm a Chiefs fan, I think. That's half the reason my dad became a Chiefs fan, I think, or became such a passionate Chiefs fan, maybe I should say. And I think that's I think Arrowhead is half. I mean, we're called Arrowhead Pride. I mean, it's. I mean, I take a lot of pride in that name because I take a lot of pride in Arrowhead. So,
do you think they'll name the new stadium Arrowhead 2 or New Arrowhead or something? And because it looked like the drawings at least had like the Ring of Fame and some of the other features that we're used to. I wonder if they're going to try their best to make it a new Arrowhead, as opposed to starting from scratch.
Yeah, I hope they at least have some resemblance, but yeah, it would kind of, I think it would be a slap in the face to call it, like an Arrowhead something. And Yeah, and they're gonna call it some, whatever corporate,
Yeah, that's
business
true.
or whatever
I mean,
company.
the billions of dollars that Kansas came up with, and there's some stories coming out now that they've been doing planning for three or more years already on this, so that it could very well be that it was a foregone conclusion. I think it was a foregone conclusion when the rolling roof didn't pass in the 70s and again in the early 2000s. We had that opportunity on the table to be just an epic one of a kind. It was already an epic one of a kind sports complex. They could have taken it to the next level with the rolling roof. I also really liked some of the, not necessarily the detailed plans that came out, but the idea of developing a little community around Arrowhead with shops and restaurants and bars and hotels and that sort of thing. That's something that's always been missing from that scene. As much as we love the tailgating, there was never anything else that you could do anywhere near there. And so
no, it got worse over time too. Like it's wild.
Yeah. So that all of that to say is that there'll be some advantages to the new location. I don't feel terrible about that. I know this is a Chiefs podcast, but I will say if the Royals also follow to Kansas, then I'll be kind of sad. I kind of feel like Royals should be downtown.
Yeah.
If nobody's going to be at the Truman Sport Complex, the Royals should be downtown. The Chiefs are going to build their new empire out there, and it's going to be it'll be beautiful in both regards. And having one team on each side of the border feels fair to me. It feels like a good compromise.
Yes. No, I hope the Royals figure it out in Missouri. I really don't think there is momentum towards that happening where they're coming to Kansas. So we'll talk more about that as we figure that out. We have 5 more years to appreciate Arrowhead. So make sure you get out there.
I think that's an underrated piece of this is like, this isn't happening tomorrow. You've got, it
feels like
5 years of Mahomes' prime left to go in Arrowhead, Truman Sports Complex, tailgating just like always, walking around the spiral ramp and smelling the smells and hearing the sounds.
Well, and hey, and you know what? I'm only 27 years old, so maybe there's not much room for me to say this, but it's not the same Arrowhead anymore. It just isn't. They don't. And it's not about the people. It's about the stadium or whatever they're, in terms of. First of all, I do like the pregame intros they do now, but they replaced the PA guy. This new guy that says third down is just way too nice, way too happy, jolly. I wish I had this podcast this season because I would have had a huge rant about this earlier this year when I was at the games, because they got rid of the guy that goes, "It's third down." Like, that is a mystique part of this, and now it's third down. Yeah. So anyway, I don't even I could go on about that. But also, just there's a few other things.
The touchdown song.
Oh yes, exactly. The touchdown song. Why can't we bring that back? Watch a game from 10 years ago. That's like the best part about scoring a touchdown is hearing the "Hey, we're gonna beat the hell out of you."
Yeah, I mean it's
like it's not.
You can hate the artist and not the art, and in my opinion on that particular. But anyhow, there's something to be said for it's never going to be like it was. So let's make it the best it can be for the next 50 years, for the next 50 years of fans, 100 years of fans to come up, telling stories about the new the Chiefs Stadium, the way that we talk about the Memorial Stadium and like all the legends from Kansas City.
You can still appreciate those places without, we can just have the stories. Hey, I will say, Dome Stadium, if we really bring it, y'all, it could be a whole new level of Arrowhead. I mean, that sound bouncing off the roof. I don't know if that's how it works, but
well, yeah, because Arrowhead held the record for the loudest outdoor stadium for a reason, because you can get pretty loud indoors in a different way. And that reminds me, people have been talking a lot about the capacity of the new stadium being smaller. Hey, maybe a cozy dome with engineered the right way, could end up being louder than the outdoor Arrowhead Stadium is today.
Exactly. Silver linings. We're finding some silver
Hey,
linings.
as long as the roof opens, so they can have they can do it both ways and have natural grass in there. I'm good with it. I think there's some opportunities there for Super Bowls and Final Fours and fun stuff like that in addition to it. And yeah, I mean, I'll give Kansas credit. They threw the wallet at it. Looking at that deal and the details, it is unbelievable what a good deal this is for Clark Hunt and the Chiefs. So I don't blame them for taking it.
Yeah, and I know we're talking about, but like that's where on the Missouri side, you hear the lawmakers be like, there's only so much we could do, and you actually kind of like had kind of sympathy for that because I mean like Clark Hunt was always going to take that kind of deal, and that's just kind of the world we live in, which does suck a little bit. Hey, as a Kansan, would I like the billionaire to pay for a little more of the stadium than he is with the amount of money he's made over the last Mahomes era years? But
yeah,
you know what? It's all good. Well,
all right. Speaking of that, really quick, the timing of it's interesting with the announcement.
Mm-hmm.
So the announcement essentially comes around the time they're being eliminated from the playoffs.
yeah, 2 days after they were. Yeah.
So that's an interesting development. Do you think that was strategic or coincidental?
No, I think they had to make a decision. I think it was always coming to this point for a while now. At sometime in December, they had to make a decision. So, yeah, no, I don't think they timed it. I think they would have loved to have not timed it like this because I think it didn't work out this way. But I think Arrowhead on Christmas could have been, you could have seen some more, like signs or people being upset or whatever, trying to demonstrate. But we didn't.
All right. Well, what else went wrong this year that was different from previous seasons? And just this is the one that came out of nowhere a little bit. Is all of a sudden the Chiefs, who have been the kings of close games and pulling things out at the end and game winning drives with Mahomes, all of a sudden they lost like all of the one score games this year, especially against all the playoff teams. What do you think? How do you reconcile that with the team that we've come to know?
Yeah, no, I think it kind of speaks to the offensive coaching staff point too a little bit where, and it doesn't, but like this team just didn't execute in situational football whatsoever this year, whether it was red zone, whether it was third down, whether it was like end of half stuff going into the second half, doubling up, never did any of that. Never happened. I feel like at one point I was keeping track of it this season where they just truly never took advantage of that opportunity where they ended the first half with the ball, started the second half with the ball. They'd score 3 points or, no points, or you should score 14 points or try to score 14 points there. Like that makes a difference in the game. All that to say, yeah, I think this team struggled situationally, struggled with penalties, struggled with, just execution. That's where it just felt like almost a lost season or a cursed season at times where it's like, this team's better than this, but it just kept happening over and over.
And yeah, to see them not deliver in big situations, it was jarring, but it was jarring to see it once or twice or three times. But by like the eighth time that they failed to secure a game-winning drive or had a drop that ended like any chance of them coming back, it's pretty easy for us to just write off this season. But I also think I'll let you weigh in here, but I also think this is kind of a good point to take a step back and get some perspective on this franchise and their place in history and this run that they've been on. Whether it's over or not, we can argue.
Yeah, no, I think zooming out here is definitely the right thing to do as we are in this weird place in Chiefs football where we are, an under or a small market or an underdog market where, these big boy markets love to clown us when we're down. Even if we just did establish ourselves as one of the true NFL dynasties. I'm gonna say this where like it's just a fact to me. It's just objective. I don't think you can argue that when you talk about the NFL's history, there are dynasties that come around every decade or so. It was the Packers in the 60s. It was the Steelers in the 70s, the Niners in the 80s, the Cowboys in the 90s. The Patriots actually doubled up. They did it in the early 2000s and the 2010s. The Chiefs are the dynasty in the 2020s. No matter what happens, like, go argue with the wall. Like the Chiefs are the next it was the Patriots for 2 decades, and that's why it felt so like, holy crap, Tom Brady is great. Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time, because they did have 2 separate dynasties. The Chiefs are going to try to do that too. I think they absolutely can do it, and I'm excited to see that try to be happen. But let's just take a step back and realize that we just saw, one of this, however many number of teams I just put, one of those dynasties, and it's not, it's no matter what happens from this point on. I mean, this team has established itself as one of the greatest, organizations, franchises, at least this era, in NFL history, and we got to be proud of that, no matter what happens.
Yeah, I mean, to go back and tell yourself 20 years ago that this was going to be the outcome of the first, 7-8 years of the Mahomes era, or even, it's mind-blowing. It is, it changes everything about being a Chiefs fan. I mean, you think about all the stuff that makes us Chiefs fans, that, the struggles, the good, not great eras, the heartbreaks in the playoffs, the absolute rock bottom that they experienced in 2012. I mean, there have been so many things that are part of the psyche of a Chiefs fan, and now to all of a sudden just be a dynasty, even one that people hate outside of Kansas City
big time
fans, is is something to appreciate the ride that we're on, and I think people are very, very short-sighted to think that it's over.
Right. No, and that's the thing. It's not, but we can still, even if all hell breaks loose from this point on and we never sniff the success we've seen again, I don't care. We have done what great NFL teams do. There's only so much. No, you're right. I think when Mahomes first came around, it was like, oh yes, now we finally have a chance to win a Super Bowl. No one in their right minds, obviously you say it as a fan, like, oh, we're going to win so many Super Bowls. I don't think anyone in their right minds really, believed it was going to be this quick, 3 Super Bowls this consecutively. So anyway, shout out the Chiefs for flipping fandom upside down on us, because now I'm nitpicky. I'm overcritical. I mean, this is what happens when you become a fan of a dynasty. You want the team to be perfect, so it can, win every year. And so, let's, because I think we do get too nitpicky, right? Like, we talk about, is the scheme too complex? We talk about, are they drafting well? Like, you look at each little player. I don't know, Stags, what do you feel about, kind of the nitpicky parts of Chiefs Kingdom?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to have the take as soon as the team starts to struggle to say, well, there's not enough talent. The coaches are terrible. Rebuild, fire everybody, right? Start over, trade everybody and get draft picks and rebuild the whole team, from the floor up. I think it's another bit of zoom out perspective that this team has drafted well. Yes. There are a lot of homegrown, really good players on this team. And in fact, some homegrown Chiefs players that are playing elsewhere now that are succeeding. This is a front office that has built a winner, maintained that winner already for an extended period of time, and they've done it largely through the draft. And so starting to throw the baby out with the bathwater, I think is also very short-sighted and narrow-minded to think that this team is devoid of talent, or they've missed on this draft pick and that draft pick. I'm like, sure, they've hit on a heck of a lot of draft picks in the meantime, including the one that really, really mattered back in 2017.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and I think like you opened it with, when a lost season happens like this, it is easy to criticize stuff that, especially, in this example, was just winning us Super Bowls and was just winning us, the AFC Championship literally last year, but when you do zoom out, I do think there's something to maybe Andy Reid becoming or being too loyal to a fault. And I do think there is something to, maybe just Nagy took his scheme and just went too far with it and made it too complex. Cause I believe in Andy Reid's willingness to innovate, and I don't think they're innovating enough. But at the same time, this team was just in the Super Bowl last year with the exact same coaching staff. So that to your point.
It's one of those things. It's really hard to pin a finger on exactly what's going on, right? You can say, well, it's Matt Nagy, right? Matt Nagy's tenure with the Chiefs corresponds with some more struggles as compared to Eric Bieniemy's, right? But there's correlation, there's causation, right? This is not necessarily Nagy comes in and ruins the offense, or it could be, but it's not necessarily so. It could also be that defenses have caught up to it. They've seen all of this stuff enough before. It could be that things like the inability to establish a running game or play under center enough, and the too much reliance on RPOs and things like that were huge a few years ago. Maybe that some of that stuff is as big of a factor as the actual voices in the room.
Well, and that's, I think, to wrap up this whole point, I think the offense does put all it almost just forces the players on the field to make the plays. The offense is never designing open plays as much as it used to, I feel like. And so it is just it's an over-reliance maybe on the players on the field. Mahomes, I saw some stat, I remember that he had the most, Dan Orlovsky tweeted out, the most total yards contributed to a quarterback of any teams before he got hurt. I think you do see that, but then it's well, hey, if they have talented players that execute that better, what do you know? Maybe it doesn't look as bad. And so that's where it is at Catch-22, and that's where it does feel like a season from hell, because a lot of stuff just happened this year. And so
I think it's too easy to pin it on one thing or the other. I think if I had to make a headline for the 2025 Kansas City Chiefs, or an Arrowhead line, I'd probably say something like, it shouldn't be this hard. They definitely have made things harder,
right,
than it has to be. Whether it's scheme, whether it's personnel decisions, whether it's coaching or situational football or whatever else, they've got to a point where nothing is as easy as it used to be, especially on offense. And some of that also is, and maybe it's the crutch or the old standby of having 3 Hall of Famers on your team and saying, what, Mahomes can make up for whatever the offensive line is lacking, or we don't have to scheme Kelce open. He just gets himself open, or, Chris Jones is going to come through.
Yeah.
And literally come through the offensive line when they need him to the most, right? Those are things that we've grown accustomed to, that if you look at this era of Chiefs football, those 3 names, along with Andy Reid, define this era of Chiefs football. And maybe you can put Tyreek Hill in there as well. But you're right. If your scheme and your play calling and your preparation are such that you have to have the fastest player in the NFL breaking tackles, or you have to have the greatest tight end of all time, routing people up, you're doing something wrong somewhere to make it that hard. And we're going to talk about some players that we think are either underused or haven't developed, or part of the solution, part of the problem. But the bottom line is, if you've got guys coming in that have all the talent in the world and can't contribute to this team, you've made something harder than it has to be.
Well, yeah, and you just watch any other NFL game, and offenses are constantly making things easy for their quarterback with scheme, with the run game. That's kind of the trend in the NFL right now, is having a run game, and the Chiefs have not. It's kind of the simple way to look at what the offense just lacks right now. It's literally just a run game, honestly.
You bet.
And that could be talent. But speaking of, talent, players that, I don't know. That's the thing. I think when we talk about like I talk about, Andy Reid potentially being loyal to a fault, does that extend to the players too, not just the coaches, where, we're seeing a lot of guys that have always been on the team, or, retreads like throwing Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the games all of a sudden this year.
Derek Nottie
is a perfect example. And so, yeah, I mean, even a recent example, like running back Dameon Pierce, I was kind of excited to see him maybe, get a chance with the team. And he has just been a game day inactive. He was finally signed to the 53-man roster and still just a game day inactive. So there's a few examples of these, right, where it just feels like the Chiefs aren't willing to branch out.
Yeah. It's one of the more puzzling things over the last few years and it feels more pronounced this year because of the failures of the rest of the team. Obviously, if they had won the Super Bowl this year, nobody would care whether Dameon Pierce set foot on the field or not. But they didn't, and so we do have to look to say, hey, again, what's up with the scheme that you can't get a talented guy like that involved, or that you have to bring in Clyde and elevate him over Pierce, for whatever reason, coach's decision. I think that's a good example of either they don't trust, either they trust some guys too much, or they don't trust outsiders enough. That this is a longer list. It's not just Dameon Pierce. Christian Fulton this year is another one.
He just had a great game against Denver. I mean, that play he made to tip to Nick Bolton, that was, I tweeted, it was the most I've seen a DB sell out to make a pass breakup for the Chiefs in a while. So
yeah,
stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, why was he on the bench all year?
I think the last couple of years, DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, he's a literal Hall of Famer who catches literally every pass thrown his direction, barely got used in Kansas City, and dropped a bunch of passes here. Like, why is
that? And what are, I mean, at least I'm saying this. I shouldn't say, it should be everyone to saying this, but what I want in the receiving group, moving forward, is someone that can catch a ball in traffic or catch a ball in a tight contested space, or at the bare minimum, when they throw it down field, be strong enough to actually look like you're going for the ball so you get a pass interference flag. I think that's a very, underrated reason why you don't see Worthy and Thornton get some of the flags. But again, MVS was the same way too. So
you had the one guy that was best at both of those things on the roster.
They refused to
barely use him, and then he goes somewhere else and shows flashes of his former self. I mean, you can say the same thing on the defensive side. Josh Uche, Cameron Thomas, these are talented pass rusher types that just never got used at all.
Well, and to the Uche point, there was rumblings this year that Brett Veach was wanting to, maybe make a trade for Seattle edge rusher Boye Mafe, who's in that same kind of archetype, player as Uche. But there's probably a reason, he didn't, pull that trigger, is because who knows if he's going to play. And that's where Spags' defense, this is actually, something where we'll get into a little bit later maybe, but a 4-man rush, when you only have defensive linemen that are kind of like pocket collapsers or long, sturdy, good against the run, and none of these kind of dynamic edge rushers like an Uche was, and when you did have him, you didn't play him, both sides of the ball aren't very flexible and fitting guys into, making sure their skills are used in, you're on the team, use their talents, find a way.
That's the whole point of Andy Reid's legendary status as a coach, is that he is known to be a player's coach, to get the best out of guys and to put them in great positions to succeed, and not, when he's at his best, that's what he's doing. When he struggles, it's almost like the scheme elevates above the players, and you're, square pegging and round holes, a lot. So it's odd. And let's hope that it's not the same trajectory as it was with the Eagles, where he was one way early in his career and then he got stale and then had to leave. So I think that's all premature talk, but I do think the usage of some of these veterans and even some of the younger guys on the roster is just been mind-blowing this year. Some of the really bright spots on this team didn't get to see the field, didn't get used as much as they should have.
Yeah, I'll give you one real quick just because you brought it up. I mean, this last game, you saw Cooper McDonald play, starting the Sam linebacker, the third linebacker, whereas Jeff Bossa, who has been excelling all year on special teams, so has Cooper McDonald, I should say. They've both been pretty good on special teams. But Bossa is a guy you drafted. He's from Oregon. He looks like a guy that is going to fly around and potentially make some plays as kind of your outside linebacker, maybe that Willie Gay type. And just no defensive snaps. He played one series against Denver for his first defensive snaps of the year, and they just went right back to Tranquil, who is potentially going to get cut this offseason. So it is fascinating.
Jalen Royals, somebody who
he started last game and played 5 snaps.
5 snaps. Yeah, I mean,
what is that?
I don't know why. That's the one big beef I have with this season is you either need to be in the Super Bowl or you need to be developing young talent for the next wave, the next run that they can make. It feels like they didn't make the Super Bowl, but they still didn't advance the talent in the way that they could have. And it leads you to start to question, is this a pattern? Has this been happening for years? Is this, you mentioned the linebacker position and Willie Gay Jr., that is somebody who we had the same complaint about for years, is that why aren't they playing Willie Gay more? Why isn't he a bigger part of the defense? Why is he on the bench in favor of, man, I'm drawing a blank, Ben Neiman? There was some it's just odd. It doesn't make sense to an outside position. Now, I'm always willing to concede that Steve Spagnuolo knows more about defense or he's forgotten more than I'll ever learn. And, all of this stuff, and it's true with Andy Reid too. And things often look simpler from the outside because we don't have all the information, but man, it sure seems like missed opportunities, not only with veterans they added or rookies that could have played more, but even over the past few years, just some guys that just didn't develop here that probably should have.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, Willie Gay still makes plays. I mean, he's on the Dolphins, and every once in a while, you're watching NFL Sunday, you'll see him still make a tackle for loss, and he was a playmaker. And I guess it's just to the point of like Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid too. But we'll talk about the defense first, or just for right now. Like he just really wants you to know what's going on and doesn't want you on the field if you don't. Like a guy like Jaden Hicks this year has not played as much. And there was one press conference, Spags kind of was pretty revealing about it, just kind of saying he hasn't been he's not at the level I kind of thought he was going to be, or, maybe, not where, can't remember exact words, but to paraphrase, he didn't trust him to play as much. And Noah Williams, someone, who's a rookie cornerback who's clearly talented, someone that in college had tons of interceptions. And you can see he's a playmaker already. And it's been, gritting our teeth trying to get him to get on the field. So it does seem like, especially in the secondary to me, it does seem like you really got to know what's going on if they're going to play you. And at some point, I don't know, you just got to trust your talent to make, they might make a mistake, but they might make up for it if they're a talented enough player. You know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of, you wish this team would maybe just trust guys to learn on the fly a little more.
And it makes you wonder about some other guys recently. You see the internet losing their damn mind because Sky Moore makes a few plays for San Francisco, right? But it's
not just the internet. Someone called him the best kick return in the NFL on a broadcast, and he has been having a great year. So it's wild that this.
And he was a decent returner here, but he also
when he got the ball in his hands. Yes,
right. Yeah, but he also fumbled a lot, right? Like he muffed a few and.
Exactly.
Yeah, and obviously
for some reason,
a lot of passes as a receiver.
in San Francisco, they were able to coach that up and get the best out of him as a returner. Here, it just was a bunch of fumbles and muffs. He had the big return against the Bengals in the AFC Championship.
Do they have better gloves over there, or they have?
Hey, you know what?
They have access to a Judge machine. I don't know.
Could it just be this simple, Stags? He was wearing number 24 here. He is wearing number 9 there. He just automatically looks like a better player. He's just aesthetics are off the charts. I think that could just be simply what it is. He just looks swaggier with the number 9 than number 24 at wide receiver. That was just
that was odd.
All right, Stags. Well, let's get this show wrapped up with something that I want to make sure we get to every edition of this podcast. Just a little bandwagon test, because we are spoiled around here in Chiefs Kingdom as we've been talking about this show. So let's just take a memory lane trip, back before 2017. Each show. Stags, I'll let you go first. Do you have a little Chiefs memory, Chiefs moment you want to share from the before times?
Man, there's been so many in it. As we were just talking about the frustration that we feel with certain players and their usage and failure to develop and all of that stuff. It reminded me a little bit of, for most of our lives, it was frustrating being a Chiefs fan, right? They were good, but not great. They lose in the most heartbreaking possible ways in the playoffs. For some reason, Chiefs great Derek Johnson came to my head as I was thinking about not only players that usage was always controversial. If you remember, Todd Haley benched him for almost was it almost a season, like a significant amount.
He was like not a part of the defense like for that whole year, that one.
And you think about it, he's a Chiefs Hall of Famer at least. Like that guy was as big of a talent and a part of this defense and part of this franchise as anybody in my lifetime that I can think of. Outside of Derek Thomas and a couple others, right? So Derek Johnson made one of the greatest plays in Chiefs history that counted for nothing. and I know you remember this. This is one of those absolutely heartbreaking, throw the TV, beat your head against the wall.
I was there.
You were in the stadium for the forward progress call, the most infamous. Would you say that should be the most infamous penalty in Chiefs history, other than D Ford's offsides? Because D Ford's was probably offsides.
Oh yeah, right. No, I would agree with you.
Derek Johnson comes through the line when all hope is lost in that game, blows up. Was it Marcus Mariota? Jars the ball loose. The Chiefs recover. They're going to win that game.
As clear as day.
And somehow, some way. And who was the referee?
Oh God, it was his last game he ever. Jeff Triplett, maybe.
Yeah, maybe it was that call deciding that the quarterback forward progress had stopped before he got hit and sacked and fumbled. I haven't seen another call like it before or since. Nope. It was one of those moments where we just thought we will never see this team get over the hump because something like that's going to happen. And it was mind-blowing and predictable all at the same time. But yeah, I'll never forget the forward progress game. Maybe you can share the firsthand of it a little bit more.
No, I like how you threw in the predictable part of it, because I always hold the story of like my dad and I didn't want to go to the game. Like we were just like, it's a playoff game. It's a Chiefs playoff game. And we're literally like, it's not even worth going. Like they're either going to lose this or they're going to win and go on the road and lose. And then like we were in Mahomes mode. Like I think there was a lot of people feeling that, I think that year, that we were just ready to get to the next year, but we ended up going. And of course, that play, Travis Kelce getting concussed, Marcus Mariota throwing a touchdown to himself. There was even these two plays at the end of the game, if you remember, that like Marcus Peters, all of a sudden it looked like he had a strip and he was returning it for a touchdown, and it wasn't a fumble or anything. And then it was, I think DJ even had one too. Like there was 2 plays at the end of the game that were very, like, it was the most odd, like perfect encapsulation of just being a cursed Chiefs fan. And the fact that it just flipped on its head completely the next year. And we were all of a sudden, going to toe to toe in the AFC Championship to overtime with Tom Brady. So it is crazy how much it's flipped. Like, it was not that long ago we were cursed. We were like,
yeah.
I was at the Steelers game. Maybe that'll be mine. The playoff game the year before. Where, oh man, 6 field goals by the Steelers, no touchdowns. Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, we hold them out of the end zone and still don't win a playoff game. The infamous Eric Fisher holding, is that the most infamous penalty? That could be close because that would have tied the game. That would have went to overtime against the Steelers in the divisional round.
About that penalty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelce calling the ref a Foot Locker employee after the game.
Early Kelce and the refs, their relationship was always funny. There's the forever GIF of him hand gesturing to the ref, or throwing the flag for him. Like some of those things were that was peak early Travis Kelce.
No, but I will say to wrap up the 2016 Steelers game, that was actually when I first started becoming interested in becoming a writer, I want to say, or blogging or being on Twitter, is because I remember finding, I literally Google searched how to make a GIF so I could make a GIF of the film of Alex Smith not throwing to Tyreek Hill when he was when he was running wide open down the field with James Harrison, the only one close to him, and Alex Smith deciding, or no, not James Harrison, he was rushing, but Alex Smith deciding to, just ignore him and move the pocket. I remember, because we didn't have Mahomes yet. That was the year before we drafted Mahomes. I remember posting that and just being like, it's time, y'all. Like, it is time. Like, we need to move on from Alex. And that's why the next year on my birthday, 2017, we drafted Mahomes. It does feel a little magical sometimes, like how this has all happened a little bit. Like, how is this? It's a little storybook, but glad we talked about those 2 games are important to get us where we're at now, for sure.
Yeah, it is. Those are lifetime memories with family. I've told the story on here before that right after they drafted Mahomes, my dad went into hospice care. We watched that first preseason game from a hospital bed, and I looked at him and I said, they're going to win multiple Super Bowls with this guy. And he's like, yeah, you think so? Because he just, again, had grown up seeing us never have that homegrown quarterback. I don't get a lot right, but that was a fun prediction to have come true, and to have those memories and you and your dad and me and my dad. I mean, I think that's a lot of what being a Chiefs fan is all about. And maybe it's never been about the Truman Sports Complex and the concrete spiral. Maybe it's always been about a team, and the relationship you have with that team, with you and your family, and for generations, and the time you spend watching games and arguing about whether they are going to blow it or not, and whether they should fire this guy or that guy. I mean, that's when people ask, like, why do I care about the Chiefs? Like that's the reason. It feels like family, and it feels like that it's multiple generations. So without getting too corny or emotional on you, that is I think that is what it's all about. I think this time of year, family and all of that is at the forefront and most important, and we can remember those times growing up, and hopefully our kids will remember those times growing up with us as Chiefs fans, and the good old days of Patrick Mahomes winning Super Bowls.
Exactly. We're in the golden age. No, for sure. And let's not take it for granted. No, it well said, Stags, because I'll just wrap it up here that, I grew up thinking my dad was like a nerd Chiefs fan like me, like, knowing every little thing. But then you grow up and realize, he just truly just loved rooting on the Chiefs with other people, just finding, I mean, all of his friends, I feel like, were just people he wanted to watch games with, or, met in tailgating, or, that's what it's all about for sure. I mean, we take it to a far extent and just, we want to talk about it, on a mic, but it's this stuff is, it's being a fan is about, being with people. It's not, being a fan alone is kind of boring, right? Like cheering for a team, cheering for someone by yourself, turning, who you're going to high five, right? Who you're going to fist bump. So it's what it's all about. Chiefs Kingdom's the best, baby. So glad we're back, Stags. Glad we're back on the airwaves. And, if you got any parting words, go for it.
No, it's a good time to be a Chiefs fan, even if this wasn't the best season. And I appreciate all of you who have tuned in the past and are listening to us now. Ron's going to take this thing and run with it. And we're going to have a good time this season with lots of different voices that you'll hear from Arrowhead Pride and beyond. So even if we have to come up with a new name for the whole website, we're going to be covering the Chiefs, win or lose, all the way through the offseason. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And hey, having a top 10 draft pick sure could make the spring a lot more fun.
Yes, it could. Draft coverage is on the way, folks. Free agency coverage, all that. We have plenty more time without a playoff run to talk about and cover. So thanks, everyone, for listening. Thank you for joining for the Out of Structure podcast. I'm Ron. That's Stags. We'll catch you next time.